Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Let me guide you on this journey through software architecture. Today, we're diving into one of the most important questions you'll face when building any application. Should you go with a monolith or microservices architecture? This might sound like geeky tech jargon, but it's really about how you organize your app, and it impacts everything from how fast you build features to how easy it is to fix bugs to how well your app handles millions of users. Whether you're a software engineer, an architect, or just curious about how apps are made, understanding these two approaches is critical. And trust me, picking the right one early on can save you a ton of headaches later. So in this video, we'll break down what monoliths and microservices actually mean, explore their pros and cons, and help you figure out which might be the best fit for your project. Let's get started. All right, let's kick things off with monoliths. So, what exactly is a monolith? Think of it like one big solid block of code that holds your entire application together. All the features, user login, product catalog, payments, notifications, live inside this one giant code base. It's like having a single all-in-one app that does everything under one roof. And because everything's bundled together, monoliths are usually easier to build and deploy, especially when you're just starting out. You don't have to worry about how different parts talk to each other over the network because, well, they're all in the same place. Usually, a monolith is maintained by one team or a small group working closely together, making collaboration straightforward. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with building a monolith. It's a proven, practical way to build applications. A lot of successful apps started this way. Now let's dive into where monoliths really shine. Why do people still love monoliths? Let's talk about their biggest advantages. First, monoliths are super simple to develop and deploy, especially when you're just getting started. You don't have to worry about complex communication between services or juggling multiple repositories. It's all in one place. Second, debugging and testing tend to be easier. When something breaks, you can dive into one code base and trace the issue without hopping between services or hunting through scattered logs. Third, monoliths work really well for small teams. When you're a tight-knit group, it's easier to coordinate if everyone is working on the same code base with one deployment pipeline. Finally, because everything is bundled together, you have a clear and straightforward view of your entire application. That can make understanding the flow and dependency simpler. In a nutshell, monoliths. Keep things simple and manageable when you're starting out or working with a smaller team. Next, we'll look at the downsides because monoliths aren't perfect. Monoliths have their perks, but they also come with some real challenges, especially as your app grows. First up, scaling. Imagine your product catalog suddenly gets a flood of visitors. With a monolith, you can't just boost resources for that one part. You have to scale the whole application, even the parts that don't need it. That's inefficient and can get expensive. Second, deployments can be risky. If one team pushes a change to payments and another updates the user profile, those changes go out together. A small bug in one module could crash the entire system, and nobody wants that. Third, large teams can get tangled up. When everyone works in the same code base, you can hit merge conflicts, overlapping responsibilities, and slower release cycles. It gets messy and hard to manage. So while monoliths are great to start, you might hit walls as your app and team grow bigger. That's where microservices come into play. Let's talk about that next. Microservices architecture has taken the tech world by storm. If monoliths are one big block of code, microservices break your application into lots of small, independent pieces. Each piece or service handles a specific business function, like user management, payments, inventory, or notifications. These services run on their own, have their own separate code bases, and communicate with each other over APIs, usually HTTP or messaging systems. Think of it like a company with different departments. HR, finance, engineering, support, each focused on their own work but collaborating when needed. They don't need to know the nitty-gritty details of what the others are doing, just enough to get their job done. This approach lets you build, deploy, and scale each service independently, which can be a huge advantage for complex or fast-growing applications. But, like any approach, it has its own trade-offs. Let's talk about why microservices are so popular. First, they're highly scalable. If one part of your app, like checkout, suddenly needs more resources, you can scale just that service without touching the rest. Second, they support independent deployments. You can update or fix a single service without redeploying the entire app. That means faster releases and less downtime. Third, microservices offer flexibility in technology choices. One team might use .NET, another might prefer Node.js or Go, whatever fits the task best. And fourth, they empower autonomous teams. Each team owns their service, end to end, including code, infrastructure, and deployments. This speeds up development and reduces bottlenecks. Microservices give you power and flexibility, but they come with their own challenges. First, you have to deal with network communication. Services that used to call functions directly now talk over HTTP or messaging systems, which means latency, failures, and retries become real issues. Second, microservices demand solid DevOps practices. You'll need reliable CI/CD pipelines, centralized logging, distributed tracing, health checks, and load balancing to keep everything running smoothly. Third, debugging gets trickier. When a problem spans multiple services, tracking down the root cause is more complicated than in a monolith. And fourth, you face data consistency challenges. In a monolith, one database transaction can update many tables atomically, but in microservices, each service often has its own database, so you have to design carefully around eventual consistency and failure recovery. So, while microservices offer flexibility and scalability, they require more operational maturity. So, with all that in mind, how do you decide between a monolith and microservices? If you're just starting out or building a small to medium app, monoliths are often the best bet. They're simpler to develop, deploy, and manage. Plus, you can get to market faster with less overhead. But if you expect your app to grow quickly, have complex business logic, or need to scale specific parts independently, microservices might be worth the extra complexity. Also, if your team is large and distributed, microservices can help keep things organized by giving teams ownership over different services. Remember, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. Many successful companies start with a monolith and then move to microservices when the need arises. The key is to understand the trade-offs and choose the architecture that fits your current goals and resources. What will you be choosing for your next project? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Based on my experience, it's always good to start simple. If your team has constraints with budget, technical knowledge on DevOps, or time to deliver your product, then go with a monolith application. There is always the option to transform them to microservices later as your needs grow. There will be additional effort needed, but you will lower the risk of not delivering anything or deploying an incomplete solution due to the technical complexity microservices will incur. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more tech discussion. See you in the next one.